Although Pontiac met its untimely demise in 2010, it left behind an automotive legacy that continues to endure. From the iconic Pontiac Trans Ams that dominated pop culture to the Pontiac GTO, often credited with starting the muscle car era, Pontiac's legendary models are still celebrated and enjoyed by enthusiasts worldwide. However, back in 1961, before the GTO and the Firebird, Pontiac was working on what could have been the most fascinating car to come out of Detroit in the 1960s. This car featured a rear-mounted transaxle, fully independent rear suspension, near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution, and a choice of a V8 or four-cylinder engine. Such a car would have caused a sensation in the automotive world. Remarkably, this wasn't just a concept car pipe dream. Pontiac actually built it. This innovative car was the 1961 till 1963 Pontiac Tempest. The Pontiac that built the Tempest in 1961 was very different from the one that met its demise in 2010. Pontiac used to be the risk takers at GM, earning a reputation as GM's equivalent of Bell Labs. Behind the scenes, Pontiac was driving innovation for the entire General Motors conglomerate with their design and engineering. These bold moves paid off with the Tempest. See, in the late 1950s, the Volkswagen Beetle was taking the world by storm, prompting American automakers to quickly develop their own compact cars to capture a share of the market. Ford introduced the Falcon, Chrysler created the Valiant, and GM developed the rear-engine, air-cooled Corvair as a direct competitor to the Beetle. GM intended to rebadge the Corvair for Pontiac as the Pontiac Polaris. However, Pontiac wanted nothing to do with that plan. As an upmarket brand from Chevrolet, Pontiac produced more premium automobiles and sought to maintain that reputation. The problem with offering the Corvair as a premium Pontiac is best explained by Pontiac's general manager at the time, who said, "The Corvair is a rear-engine, air-cooled car. How do I make it different? There's no grille to be restyled, and the engine can't be exchanged for a Pontiac power plant. Therefore, how do I justify the extra $500 to $1,000 added to the price to sell it with a Pontiac nameplate?" And he was right. So, instead of collaborating with GM to redesign the Corvair, Pontiac's innovative team did what they did best. They created something entirely different. The main visionary behind the Tempest was none other than John DeLorean. DeLorean and his team at Pontiac aimed to push the boundaries and create something truly ahead of its time. Their vision for the Tempest was a car that was quick, nimble, fuel-efficient, and capable of seating 6. Although they used the base Corvair chassis, they significantly altered it to fit their needs. Pontiac increased the wheelbase from 108 inches to 112 inches and redesigned part of the chassis to accommodate a front-engine layout as opposed to the Corvair's rear-engine design. One of the most intriguing challenges DeLorean and his team faced was making the Tempest a 6-seat compact car. They accomplished this by mounting the engine at the front of the car and placing a transaxle gearbox in the rear, connected by a 3/4-inch wide shaft. This innovative design eliminated the need for a bulky transmission tunnel inside the car, as the Tempest transmission was housed in the rear. As a result, they were able to use a nearly flat floor pan in the Tempest, allowing for 2 rows of bench seats to accommodate 6 adults. The Tempest also featured a modified version of the Corvair's independent rear suspension to save on development costs, which had been largely consumed by the chassis revisions and the new engine design for the Tempest. Not only did the Tempest feature a dramatically revised Corvair chassis, but it also came with a new engine, a 195 cubic inch inline 4-cylinder. DeLorean chose a 4-cylinder engine to keep the car lightweight and enhance fuel efficiency. This car was extraordinarily different from anything else produced by American automakers at the time, and the engine was equally unique. Pontiac took their 389 cubic inch V8, removed one bank of cylinders, and created their inline 4-cylinder, which they called the Trophy 4. The Trophy 4 engine shared many components with its larger counterpart, such as the pistons, rods, heads, and other parts. In the Tempest, the 4-cylinder engine was available in a basic 110 horsepower and 190 pound-feet torque economy version as the base model, with progressively more refined versions leading up to the top trim Trophy 4, which offered 155 horsepower and 215 pound-feet of torque. This high-performance version featured an aggressive cam and a 4-barrel carburetor. Trophy 4-powered Tempests could achieve 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 10.5 seconds when equipped with 3.73 rear gears and a manual transmission. While these cars weren't blisteringly fast, they were quite quick for their class. Additionally, buyers could opt for a Buick 215 cubic inch V8 engine, which produced around 185 horsepower. The Tempest also offered a choice between a 3-speed manual or automatic transmission. The 1961 and 1962 Pontiac Tempests were largely similar, with only some minor exterior revisions to the front end. However, 1963 was a different story. For the final year of the Corvair-based Tempests, Pontiac made extensive changes. They lengthened the car by 5 inches and increased its width by nearly 2 inches. The more subdued styling of the 1961 and 1962 Tempests was replaced in 1963 with a more squared-off and muscular appearance, which complemented the new engine options. For the 1963 model year, Pontiac introduced their own 326 cubic inch V8, producing 260 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. This new engine became the top trim, replacing the Buick 215 and offering about 100 more horsepower than the Trophy 4. Even more extraordinary than the 326-powered Tempests were the 421 cubic inch V8-powered Super Duty Tempests, of which only 6 were made in 1963. These cars were specially built for superstock drag racing and featured impressive performance, 405 horsepower and 425 pound-feet of torque, courtesy of their high-performance 421 Pontiac engines. The Super Duty Tempest also included a fully lightened aluminum front end to reduce weight. Remarkably, they retained the Pontiac transaxle in the rear, making them the ultimate expression of the Pontiac Tempest. The 1963 Pontiac Tempest even has a notable pop culture reference to its unique independent rear suspension in the 1992 film My Cousin Vinny. However, 1963 marked the end of this era for the Tempest. The complex transaxle design ultimately proved to be the car's downfall. For GM, with their production of thousands of cars each week, profitability hinges on economies of scale. The more cars that use the same core parts, the more efficient GM could be with their production line, ultimately increasing their profitability. The Tempest's unique transaxle design placed it in a niche of its own, and repair shops found it difficult to work on due to its deviation from the standard design used by most cars at the time. Consequently, in 1964, GM decided to transition the Tempest to the more conventional A-body platform. From 1961 to 1963, Pontiac produced approximately 370,000 Tempests. However, finding one in good condition today can be challenging. Over the years, the difficulty in obtaining replacement parts led to many Tempests not receiving the care they needed and ultimately deteriorating. Pontiac Tempests from 1964 and later are much more common today compared to the original 1961 to 1963 models. This is unfortunate because the early Tempests were among the most unique cars ever produced by GM. If these initial Tempests were made today, they would likely be quite different. The concept of a GM brand making substantial modifications to an existing product to create something entirely new, with parts that were not interchangeable with other GM vehicles, is quite extraordinary. This level of innovation is what makes the early Pontiac Tempest so fascinating. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and make sure you're subscribed. Until next time.